I didn't do too much reading into this new release by Steven Wilson, but I did read one article before the album was dropped stating that this album only contains two 20-minute long tracks and is more in line with old school prog rock. So this was enough to get me fairly excited. The prospect of these two epic tunes written by an underrated maestro in his field signed me up. Hi people and hello my Chili Con Carnage crew, it's Chili here, the man with iron in my eyes, and I'm doing a 5-minute review on The Overview by Steven Wilson. Now Steven Wilson is a British prog rock guitarist, most famous for of course being a part of the Porcupine Tree, and of course producing a few albums for Opeth. He is known in the field circles as he also is a member for bands such as Blackfield, Storms, Corrosion, and also producing and remastering the albums for the first few Yes records. And The Overview is his 8th solo studio album. As previously mentioned, this album only contains 2 songs for this record. Well, kind of. We'll get into that a bit later. But first of all, let's talk about the songs. We are greeted by the first track, Objects Outlive Us All, and I gotta say, I do enjoy this tune. It truly does feel like he has returned to his old roots here, and playing music that I'm certainly more familiar with from albums that I know and I've listened to quite a fair bit over the last few years. I think fans of his works are certainly going to enjoy this piece for its 23-minute duration, as Steven Wilson shows us just how it's done, but I wouldn't exactly call it a prog rock epic masterpiece here. It certainly is a catchy tune, it's probably just missing something and I don't exactly know what it is. Perhaps the pacing's a little bit off here and there, but other than that, a pretty adept sounding track to open up the record.
Virgo Supercluster. Eridanos Super.
The second track and title song from the album, The Overview, is around 18 minutes in length and is a drastic departure from the piece that we heard earlier. It's a much more electronic and atmospheric tune compared to its counterpart, Objects Outlive Us All. Well, I guess I'm going to have to say it bluntly, but this is an oddly produced exercise in self-indulgence. The intro for this tune goes just for way too long, lasting at 4.5 minutes roughly, with its electronic drum pattern and female vocalists reciting several stars and nebula sizes, and it is kind of interesting to hear it, but it just drags on. This intro piece just feels like an unnecessary looping pattern that seems to go in and out and almost feels like it's going to lead into the next section, then pulls us back in. It goes to the next section, nope, it's going to pull us back in. We're still in that first intro, and it doesn't really progress too far until of course eventually it hits the mark. Now it's certainly an interesting premise as far as what the vocals are saying and of course telling us this new angle, and I get what Steven is trying to create, an air of just how small and even insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. However, it's bizarre that given Steven's track record producing so many records over the years, that the mixing of the instrumentals just overpowers the vocal sections in parts. Maybe this was done intentionally, but I don't think it works. It just sounds janky and off-putting when you're trying to hear and find out what the size of Sirius is, and then a guitar just randomly interjects and drowns out the message. Foregoing the intro, the next section is certainly nice part, but it is albeit very repetitive for the next 6 minutes. Also, the transition to the following section is purely a fade out, which feels like he ran out of ideas and relies heavily on its intro and outro sections to drag this song into its longer territory, usually associated with the field of course. I think it's safe to say I certainly didn't enjoy this half of the record. Now I have to give credit to Steven Wilson here for a moment for rectifying a minor issue that I've mentioned in a few reviews, in particular for prog rock albums, and that is his inclusion of the album with the tracks as they were originally intended, in all parts on one track, or as separate sections with the added bonus of throwing in an additional intro section for each piece. This gives power to the listener as to how they want to hear the record. Don't like suit 1? Fine, skip it. Want to add the entire first piece to your epic prog rock playlist in its entirety? No problem. Either way, it's an added bonus in my books. This should be done more often by prog rock groups, I reckon. In the past, I've stated that my OCD gets the better of me if it's a 20-minute track that is separated into 5 different tracks. And look, I do get why they do it as far as what Spotify is concerned. While it's a nuanced gaffe that doesn't count towards the overall score of an album, I just wanted to point it out, as I believe this album is the first one to ever be released with both options, giving the listener the option to choose whichever one they want to go with. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, when it comes to my experience regarding regarding this record, I feel a bit deflated by the overall enjoyment of it. You can't tease me by saying this record is old school prog and give me an electronic ambience piece for half the album. That's not prog. It's an 18-minute glorified lo-fi beats tune. There is a minor amount of redemption as the first track does follow suit. However, I get the sneaking suspicion this could have been a B-side from Harmony Codex and was intentionally left off due to time restraints on that album that was already there. This record signifies one of two albums, the other one being Coed and Cambria and their new record, released on the same day that contain a bleak message. And that message is that we all grow up and get old, and our imminent demise is but the tiniest speck on the grand cosmic ballet. Oh, what an uplifting weekend of music I have chosen to consume. While the ideas on this record are intriguing and almost like a 21st century version of David Bowie's Space Oddity, Mr. Wilson's music lacks the warmth that Bowie's song contained, despite its message of course of despair with both of them. Instead, it just feels as cold as the void of space itself. Overall, I'm going to give this album a score of 6 million chilies on the spicy scale, with Objects Outlive Us all being my favourite track. Now, I'm not going to lie, I kind of feel disappointed by this effort. The little hype that I heard doesn't really justify the experience. Don't get me wrong, it's just fine, but just fine doesn't blow my mind, and I know this could be so much more. I get the feeling that this record is just outtakes of long songs that he had on his shelf and just padded to fulfill the obligation of a standard record length, because in truth, there is perhaps 30 minutes of music on here once you trim the fat. And as I stated earlier, I don't think the added intro sections on the expanded track format add any value to the music on hand, other than of course to fluff out its runtime. Points for trying something different with the two options though, and I would like to see this moving forward on future prog rock releases. Anyway, as always, go listen to the album for yourself and make sure to tell me in the comment section what you think of it, and as always, you have a great day and stay spicy out there. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us and stay notified for future music related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always people, you have a great day and stay spicy.